Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Vital Art session. In today's lesson, we're going to be painting this beautiful arrangement with an orange lily and some purple flowers and a glass jar. So a nice spring flower arrangement is ahead of us. So let's dive in and get started. Okay, hello everybody. We have a very lovely, beautiful arrangement in front of us to paint today. It's fairly simple as far as a flower arrangement goes. What I'm going to do here is find my midway point in the canvas whenever I do the X from corner to corner, and that gives me approximately the halfway point. And then I'm going to kind of estimate my thirds here. So this kind of gives me an idea, you know, with this type of arrangement, because I do want to get the ribbon hanging over the edge and all of that. The tendency might be to make the flower arrangement much larger than what I should. So, you know, that's roughly about, you know, halfway. So from about here to here is really about how big I want to go in order to leave me room for some background, and also the front table edge, if you're going to put that in. In this case, I actually have something hanging over the table edge, so I certainly want to leave some room for that. I really thought this would be neat to see the ribbon through the glass, as well as so I guess we kind of actually have a pretty challenging setup in front of us today as far as the size and placement goes, and I'm not quite sure how much I'll get to that ribbon, but I do like the idea. And anytime, the main point being, anytime you have something that you've designed to where you've got something hanging over the edge like this, then obviously you've got to leave enough space for that to do that. Now, how much is up to you, and I generally just like to start off perhaps a little bit smaller than what I think I might need, if I err on any side of caution there, so that if things do grow, that the painting perhaps won't feel too claustrophobic in the end result. So as you can see, I've got, you know, if I want to give a little more leeway here to make the vase a little bit bigger, I can, and kind of drop that baseline. And you know, you've got to keep in mind, if you put a frame on these, you're going to lose 1/4 inch all the way around. And so you don't want your objects to just fill out the entire canvas. Okay, so we're going to have Lily here. What it might do is just kind of block in a shape here where that's going to go, because I also want to leave space for some of these leaves and foliage. Go ahead and block in. I'm going to grab a little bit of my Prussian. I do have my Prussian blue out, oops, this time, because that's going to be a really nice color for the green glass, as well as some of the green leaves. Okay, and then we've got a nice bright light leaf here on the inside too. All right, so the next stage would be to get something into the background. So I'm going to grab some ochre with my Prussian and just get something. I'm going to go warm back, a little warmer back there, so that maybe my cool purples will, and my cool blue will stand out. But I'm going to put it on kind of thin, not too thick, just in case I decide to alter the color a little bit later on. This will also kind of help me find the silhouette of the vase a little bit better. Be sure to paint in between things here. And again, you don't need the whole background filled in, but it's nice to use it in order to find your foreground objects a little bit better. So I'm kind of looking for these negative shapes here of some of the lilies, the lily petals. I guess there's only one lily, really. Okay, very nice. Okay. And then I can use my paper towel to kind of wipe out where I'm seeing some of that ribbon flowing through. I put this little leaf up here, but I'm not quite sure yet that I'll use it. Maybe if I was working on a bigger panel, there might be room for it. Okay, and I'm going to use my ultramarine blue and my alizarin crimson, little tiny touch of white just to color that up, because those two colors are so dark and transparent. So to be able to actually see what color I've got here, I need a little touch of white. And that is one reason why I do favor the Kremnitz white or flake white, because it is so gentle of a mixing color, mixing white. So I can even use it a little bit in a dark mixture like this and still keep the dark nice and dark. So anyways, I'm going to use my ultramarine blue because that's more of my purple blue. And this actually looks a little more red violet rather than blue violet. So I'm going to put a little more alizarin in that mixture, and you can see how nice and dark and rich that can go. These little, I don't know, are these called flocks? I'm not sure what these are called, but they're like these little cylinders, little tubes. So the right hand side is going to be primarily in shadow. You will have some petals also on the lit side that kind of fall into shadow as well, but essentially you want to think about, you know, the underplane, where the direction of the light source is coming. So the underplane here, here, and also the right hand side is going to be in shadow. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually add more white to that and get something a little bit lighter, same color family, but just lighter in value for the light side. And I'm attempting to leave a little bit of leeway here so that I can go a little bit lighter if needed. I really like these kind of flowers. Just really fun to paint. And I should say it's important here not to over mix your color. So it's nice sometimes whenever you get little pieces of color there. I want to make sure not to raise the value too much, lighten the value too much on these, because overall whenever I squint down, you know, they're darker in value to the lily. The lily is much lighter and brighter, but there's definitely some nice little pieces of light on these guys. All right. So cleaning that off, let's go to the lily. I'm going to use my Cad Yellow Deep, or if you have Cad Orange, that works out well. I'm going to use my Naples Yellow to lighten that up just a bit. Here's where I want to be a little more careful. Perhaps. I'll try. It's going a little sweet, so I think I'm going to add in a little bit of this cadmium yellow. Yeah. So sometimes that, if you're using Cad Orange, which I think I ran out. I think this is Cad Orange. I think I ran out of the Cad Yellow Deep. And so sometimes that Cad Orange can go pretty sweet on you, meaning, you know, kind of more peachy. Which I definitely don't want all over. And then I might just kind of put this on thin just to find my drawing right now, using some of that purple that I just picked up to desaturate with. So all this part right here is kind of the underplane that's in shadow, so that's where stealing some of that purple is quite beneficial to us. If you're having trouble with the drawing, really look at the negative space around. So kind of stop looking at the lily and start looking at the negative spaces. Got one here that's gonna come out. And if you got anything too dark where a light lily can go, I mean, I don't think that's awful, but you can always wipe away with your paper towel. And then in the scent, so you can either grab some purple or some green from the other colors that you've mixed to kind of knock this value down. So this one, it's kind of like the ribbon, actually. It kind of bends and turns around, and so this piece is catching more light, much like this piece over here. Let me see if I can show you that. Much like this piece over here, let's say, is catching light, and then the inside is more in shadow, although that's way too much of a change in local color. But it's almost better to, you know, establish the light first and then worry about local color. You can always paint the local color back into it. So I'm using some of that Cad Orange there to just maybe bring back in a little richness of color, but it keeps that value nice and dark. And we've got one petal here that's kind of coming out, catching the light, so I want to definitely have a nice sharp edge on that, especially the edge facing us in front. And on the inside, so these kinds of petals are much different than, say, these on the purple flowers. They're like little open bowls. So little cups or little bowls. So usually the left-hand side, in this case with our light coming from top left, so the left-hand side falls more into shadow, with the right-hand side, I mean, it's not really shadow, it's just not getting as much light. But with the right-hand side right here getting a little bit more light. The other important piece, I feel, is the, I guess those are the stamens. And I don't think you need to do every single one. And certainly I would say keep it kind of colorful, rather than just putting like burnt umber or brown. So we can make some of these a little bit darker, but it's more of like a deep red violet, as you can see on the palette, than brown. But that does kind of help to start to pull the whole thing together. And okay, so Actually, you know what? Before I go forward, there's like a little shadow here from the petal up above that's casting some shadow onto the lower petal. And again, my goal is to keep this colorful, so I'm going to make some red and orange in here. Last thing I want is like a really dirty looking lily. So, you know, I try to keep all the mixtures having a little bit of saturation of color in them for the most part. Keep that richness going. Okay. Trying to see, oh, it looks like there's one little cast shadow guy over here as well that goes a little bit darker. So a little bit of that grayish green goes a long way. We definitely don't want it everywhere. Okay. Okay, so now on to the some of the leaves, and then down to the glass. Just going to use some straight Prussian here, actually. Maybe some Prussian and red. Okay, so it's not so blue, but you can see how dark just that Prussian and red will go. I'm not sure how many of these little overlaps I want to have kind of interrupting the purple flower back there, but we'll try it out. Let's see, there's one that's kind of curling over. That might be nice. I mean, obviously overlaps are a good thing, but you can maybe have too many where it gets a little confusing. Okay, and then looking for some of these leaves from the flowers here, and then that one kind of comes up and into, connects to the lily. Oh, that was with Prussian blue, and you know, that Prussian blue and red, cad red that I had mixed up, but also has some cadmium yellow in it to lighten it. And this isn't even as light as we're going to go. We're just kind of trying to get some of the middle tone colors in. If that ever goes too sweet on you, or too cool, when I say too sweet, it usually means too cool, sorry. Add something with some warmth, like the transparent Chinese orange, something that's a hotter color. Okay. And then now what I want to look for is like a lighter version of that green. So I'm going to grab this Naples yellow and some of the cool lemon, and just by pulling in a little touch of that darker green there. And if you're ever conflicted about maybe which ones to put in, I would say kind of squint down your eyes, and whichever ones seem to, when you just look at the center point of the setup, which ones seem to really stand out to you. And those would be the ones that I would focus on first. And usually it's front and center, you know, and like this one inside the glass stands out pretty nicely. Could just be that I don't like the placement of that, so maybe if I scooch it over, you know, that leaf there, maybe if I scooch it over to the left, we'll see. Okay, now we need some of this Prussian. And glass, you know, is darker on that starting edge. So it's actually going to be kind of darker than the background. Let's put a little bit of this cool lemon yellow, because it's not quite right just as is. Darker on the starting edge, especially, you know, down here on the bottom, and then in the center as well. This goes pretty dark in here. And then not only do we get, just in terms of local color, I mean, we get background showing through. We also get leaves and all that showing through. But generally, the color gets lighter on what is generally known as the shadow side. So opens up, gets a little bit airier in the middle, and then the more I kind of make that stuff less noticeable, the better. Again, with glass, the highlights being so much stronger and lighter, you know, they're so much lighter in value. That's part of what makes glass look like glass. And then we've got a little more golden, sort of like a golden glow, just like a green grape on this side. And anytime you need to redo something, just paint over it. You know, like putting that in the beginning was kind of nice. It kind of gave me an idea of where I was going. But anytime, I don't like to work around stuff, you know. It's easier to just paint over it and redo it. And then some of our background color, you know, maybe showing through. Well, is showing through, not maybe, definitely is showing through. So you kind of want to get some of that in there to make that glass feel more translucent. And then I definitely want to get this back in there. The stem here, this light green one. So a lot of times whenever you do it the second time, you'll do it better. Hopefully. You never know. Okay, so, and I think these can definitely go stronger in here. Okay, now, I just noticed I really like this little guy, this little leaf over here. Let's get some suggestion of that in there, even though it's in shadow. I like that it casts a shadow on the fabric, on the ribbon. Always try to get a shadow side underneath things. Do need to get a couple more hits of light on. Yeah, too much blue. Too much blue. Okay. You know, I think maybe why I like these is because they remind me of lilacs. And I really enjoy painting lilacs, apparently. I discovered last spring that was really fun. We just didn't have very many lilacs in Oklahoma. It was just too hot. But they have them out here in Colorado a lot, so I think that's why I'm enjoying painting these. Okay. So white fabric, you can do a couple of things. Can use a lot of this color we already have on the palette, just kind of neutralize it a bit. And since they're complementary colors, we can kind of mix them together. You know, the green and the red and the orange. There's a lot of violets in this ribbon. So this is sort of like ribbon without without highlight on it yet. So since it's satin, it's going to have, kind of like the glass, a strong highlight. We've got to show some of that peeking through. I think that background color could go darker for sure. Oddly enough, I feel like this ribbon's gonna tie the whole thing together, and I kind of felt like that whenever I set it up. That was sort of the piece to the puzzle that was needed in this arrangement. And then this catches a little bit more light, which is nice since it's coming around to the front now, so more white. And with, let's say, metal, satin, things like that have a real shimmer, you've got to kind of move your brush a little quicker whenever you apply that shimmer. And it's got to really kind of sit on top. So the slower your brush moves actually kind of tells us a little bit about the texture of the object. I'm sorry, I'm mixing up some tabletop light here. We need a little light. So just adding in some Naples yellow into that. And just grabbing, this is what I do in my studio too. A lot of times I'll just kind of start mixing all these colors together to get some of the neutrals that I need. That's another good way to, tie things together in the painting. Tie colors together. Looking again, I think all of this needs to go much darker on the inside of the glass. I'm going back to that Prussian and the cad red. A lot of times in the end, you're really restating things or taking things a little more contrasty, because as you work wet into wet, a lot of times everything just kind of wants to go to the middle. It's a bummer, man. But so during finishing stages of a painting, that's a lot of times what I am on the hunt for, is what needs more details, and then what perhaps can I mute or dull down so that it doesn't steal the show, so it makes the star of the show shine more. So things like this overlap of this leaf, little details, gives me a very nice light reversal there. Looking here, shadow underneath this. Ribbon back there needs to go a little bit darker. Maybe even closing this section down. Value. So sometimes it's just a matter of making sure you don't have anything too light in value or too weak of contrast, so that we're looking at it more. You want to, like down here on the table edge, perhaps need to kind of close down that value a bit so that the ribbon stands out more. Okay, so, and I still feel like some more specific petals in these purple flowers would really benefit the painting if I could get some of these smaller edges that are getting a little bit more light. especially around the lily itself. And it also could be that the background is a little bit weak, which I definitely think is the case. This one's closer to us and closer to the lily, so it's almost a little more important to get some more details on. And then if you see, you know, some of these greens that are showing through, or any leaves that are kind of getting a little more light and provide yet another overlap. Overlaps are incredibly helpful for getting more depth of space. Sometimes these straight lines here, the brush strokes that read really fast like that, come back and break them up. You don't want like that obvious of a you know, one long singular brush stroke, so to speak. Also want to try to make sure that that I am getting enough glowy reflected light in there and that the sides are not caving in at all.